the game to fight people. Like, this is our job. This is what we do. Like, you put people in front of me. My job is to beat them.
I want to eat him with my eyes when I see him. I want to look through his soul and just eat him, like tame this motherfucker. Like, that's what I want to do. I want to eat him alive.
Marvin the Italian Dream Vettori.
Finally, we're getting this matchup that I personally and many hardcore fans have been wanting for a while. Although Robert Whittaker appears to be the superior and more accomplished fighter, this fight would nonetheless be a clear indicator of who the actual second best of the division is. Of course, only behind Adesanya. The last stylebender has 4 victories over Robert Whittaker and Marvin Vettori, defeating both of them twice each. Robert the Reaper Whittaker is coming off of his second championship loss to Israel Adesanya, which took place at UFC 271 in February. Their first meeting at UFC 243 ended in Whittaker losing the middleweight belt to Adesanya via knockout.
Be very careful.
He went the distance with Adesanya in their rematch, but lost on the scorecards to the last stylebender. Whittaker has won 12 of his past 14 fights. Vettori is also on an impressive run, having gone unbeaten in 8 of his past 10 outings. But like Whittaker, he has lost twice to Adesanya. In his most recent bout, a light heavyweight contest, he defeated Paulo Costa by unanimous decision in the main event of UFC Vegas 41 last October.
The Italian Dream, Marvin Vettori!
The Whittaker vs. Vettori fight was first scheduled to be on the last concluded UFC 275 pay-per-view card. However, Robert Whittaker announced on social media that he was out of his fight against Marvin Vettori due to an injury he suffered in training camp. But at last, Robert Whittaker and Marvin Vettori are officially set to throw down in the City of Light on September 3rd. The UFC announced that the fight will take place as the co-main event of the UFC Paris card, headlined by Cyril Gane and Tai Tuivasa. Well, this is going to be a great fight, and if you are not excited by this matchup, this breakdown should build your hunger for the fight. Okay, let's get into it. Starting with Robert Whittaker, he poses a record of 23 wins and 6 losses, with 9 of his wins coming by knockout and 5 by submission. Despite 2 losses to the current champion at 185 pounds, Robert Whittaker remains a solid #1 contender in the middleweight division. After losing his first fight to Adesanya at UFC 243, Whittaker admitted he was in his own head and came in over-aggressive, which ultimately fell straight into the stylebender's hands. Whittaker went back to the drawing board and returned to headline a fight night against Darren Till. He showed patience and ability to trade against a striker like Till, and Whittaker went on to win the fight by unanimous decision. Similar to the Till fight, Whittaker picked up 2 more wins on the bounce. Whittaker landed 69 of 151 significant strikes, compared to 53 out of 89 for Cannonier, to again win by unanimous decision.
Well, and you got to think, at least to this point in time, this Whittaker performance might be resonating with the middleweight champion.
This kind of volume could be trouble for the Italian Dream, as Vettori tends not to land as much in bigger fights in the past. For example, against Kevin Holland, despite the win, Vettori only landed 24 to Holland's 37 significant strikes. Out of 18 wins for Vettori, only 2 of them have come by knockout. However, much has changed in Vettori's approach in his last fight against Costa. Vettori found success as the aggressor and punished Costa for it, with a clinical 41% of his shots landing to the body of Costa. There is much doubt that Vettori will have huge success by keeping this fight on the feet. Instead, he should look to grapple and use his size on Whittaker and choose the right moment to counter Whittaker's attacks. Being a black belt in karate and hapkido, Whittaker is a very capable range fighter, but also works well with his hands from inside the pocket. Whittaker is exceptionally quick in how he closes the distance, which has proven to be both a major boon and defensive risk should his foe time his entry. And although he wasn't successful in fighting in the pocket against Adesanya, Vettori is not really a good counter striker like Adesanya, so I think Whittaker would be able to dominate the striking in the pocket. Whittaker is dangerous from within the pocket, but much of his work begins outside of that range. Bouncing in place, Whittaker is able to spring forward and close a surprising amount of distance. punches. Often, he does so with the jab, a mark of his boxing experience. Many believe Whittaker has the best jab in the UFC. I believe his jab is top 3. Whittaker's jab and subsequent jab feints make him a very difficult man to deal with at range, as he builds from the strike wonderfully. Vettori has long been a fighter who makes the most of fundamentals, but his kickboxing has become remarkably fine-tuned during his recent victories. There is nothing incredibly standout about Vettori's kickboxing game. He doesn't have true one-punch power or a devastating singular kick. However, Vettori does put together combinations better than most, specifically while pressing forward and closing the distance. However, if this is going to be a pure striking battle, Whittaker, no doubt, has the advantage. Whittaker remains light on his feet and bounces like a karateka. He likes to bounce in with quick punches, another trait that reveals his traditional martial arts background. However, once he bursts into the pocket, Whittaker's combinations are that of a skilled boxer. He doesn't do any of that ugly, alternating straight lefts and rights that Vettori does. However, when it comes to mixing up striking with wrestling, only a few are better than Vettori at that. The importance of physicality cannot be overstated in wrestling. Vettori may not have a scholastic wrestling background, but as a strong middleweight with a long history of MMA training, he's a very solid wrestler in the cage. He weighed in at 205 pounds for his last fight against Paulo Costa, and he is known as one of the biggest fighters in the division. If Vettori is more active in pursuing the takedown, he likes to work along the fence. More specifically, Vettori likes to work from the upper body clinch, often starting on the single leg before moving up towards a body lock. If Vettori is unable to force his opponent down with just a body lock, he'll look to hook a leg for the outside trip. But I believe Whittaker is too smart to allow that to happen. Besides, Whittaker is known as one of the best counter wrestlers in the UFC. Whittaker's defensive wrestling is amazing. He has both great hips and a great whizzer. For example, throughout 10 rounds with Romero, Whittaker defended most of the Olympic silver medalists' takedowns and kept the fight a stand-up battle. Whittaker's range control makes it difficult for fighters to set up shots on him, which goes a long way in denying the takedown. However, with Vettori's ability to walk down fighters and close the distance, he might sneak in a few takedowns in this fight. When the fight gets to the ground, in my opinion, I'd say Vettori has the advantage. He is a jiu-jitsu brown belt with 9 victories via tap out.
Seconds to work. Robertson gonna try to fight the hands. There's the tap.
Vettori hunts for the neck. The guillotine is the Italian's go-to move. Very often, he attacks the front choke as his opponent goes to stand up. Vettori is quick to posture up and deliver punches from top position, which does create space for his opponent to attempt to stand up. On the other hand, although he holds a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, Whittaker isn't often showing off his submission skills. He relies more on his takedown defense. Taking Whittaker down would be a very difficult job for Vettori, but if he does, he has a solid ground and pound and a good submission game to get the advantage. Perhaps Vettori's biggest strength is his durability. If it's just a pure striking battle, he has a very slim chance against Whittaker. However, due to his uncrackable chin, he can eat shots as he walks his opponents down to land his own or secure takedowns. Across 2 fights against Israel Adesanya, Vettori wasn't knocked out or even dropped. In comparison, Whittaker got dropped 3 times across his 2 fights with Adesanya. No doubt, Whittaker is the chinnier fighter, and Vettori is just a bull that pressures no matter what he is hit with. Paulo Costa even landed a vicious head kick that would have knocked out a heavyweight. However, Whittaker's shot selection and kick game may force Vettori's granite chin to finally crack. If I'd make a prediction, the most likely outcome for this fight is a decision. Throughout Vettori's MMA career, he hasn't been finished. All of his 5 losses have come by decision. His granite chin and solid jiu-jitsu would make him difficult to be finished by anybody. Another reason why this makes sense is that since his TKO finish over Ronaldo Souza in April 2017, Whittaker hasn't finished any fighter he has faced. That makes it 7 fights without a finish for Bobby Knuckles. Likewise, I don't see Vettori winning this fight by finish. With only 2 knockouts in 18 fights, his likely option to finish Whittaker would be by submission. Unfortunately, with Whittaker being one of the best counter wrestlers in the UFC, it would be a tough one for Vettori to accomplish. Finally, with Whittaker opening at -135 and closing as a -170 favorite, this is as close a matchup as you can find. They are both obviously the best fighters in the division, besides Adesanya, so I believe they'd battle it out and it'd probably end in a close decision. Well, MMA will always be MMA, and we never know until the fight happens. Until next time.